Hey there. Well, y'all already been on a second. I'm waiting for the thing to go click. Let's see. Hello to Jeff. Hello to Gunsmith. Newfoundland, Canada. Awesome. Mike, hello to the UK. Stephen, good evening. Mike Wright, good evening. Keep all, hello. 2020, hello. Jeff, how hot is it in Alabama? Right now, it's cooled off a little. It's 89 degrees with about 85% humidity. That's pretty cool, actually, for us. We're down about 10 degrees from what it was earlier. 17 now. Wow. Highs in the 20s. You must be on the far side over. So how's everybody doing tonight? Seduce, good evening. Kodak, good evening. Yeah, I heard that William Collins finally got his power back on. And I haven't heard if Sarge Vennings got his power in Texas back on. But Bear's in the house. Hello, brother. Good evening, Jeff. Fishing golf. Hello to Illinois. Cool. Cadman, cool. I'll see you up there at Beliveau at the Silver Wolf. 95 degrees here. Yep. Jack Dorsey, good evening. It's one of them things where, I expect it. I'm from the deep south, and I expect somewhere around 100 degrees in July and August. It just, now I would be very concerned if it was close to 100 degrees in February. But at the same time, people go, oh my God, it's so cold. Well, it's February. I kind of expect cold in February, like I expect heat and humidity in Alabama in June, July, and August, and even some September and November, depending on the year. So it can be a little bit of a push. Oh, went and had chicken for dinner tonight. One of them times where you get the baked chicken and just whip up some sides to go with it and stuff. Whipped it down right quick. But during the summer, I just don't want to eat. When it's so hot during the day, I just want to drink. And something light, something cool, sandwiches, which are a big thing down here in my south is tomato sandwiches, banana sandwiches, fruit sandwiches, things like that. Something that ain't hot, And then later in the evening, after about say 8 or 9 o'clock, then I'll, I want to eat something more substantial. But during the heat of the day, I don't want to eat anything really hot. Ronald Green, hello. Gordon, hello. Choir boys, good evening, brother. Brett Johnson, good evening. Justin, good evening, brother. Big E Knives, good evening. James Singer, hello to South Carolina. Herbert, hello. Terry, good evening. Yeah, I'm going to be posting a list of where I will be this fall. It's already stacking up, but a rough list is on September. I'll be going to West Virginia to the Gather thing. That's where Jay and Madison Poole and them and a group of others are putting on a gathering up there. I don't remember if I'm doing a class there or not. I got to re-iron that out. That's September. October, we're doing Silver Wolves in North Georgia. November, and then maybe, and this is a maybe, in the end of October, like 18th, 19th, and 20th, maybe going to the lake to do a camp out if nothing else pops up that's going to interfere with that. Because my wife, Mrs. Blackie's birthday is in the 13th. So it depends on what, she always wants to go do something on her birthday. And so it depends. But at the present, we're going to tentatively say like 18th, 19th, 20th at Geneva State Forest Lake. Not a gathering, but just a 3-day camp out, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Yeah. And then November, going to Georgia Bushcraft. And then in December, I'm going down to the Rewild gathering down in Florida near Ocala. And I'll be down there. And me and Scab is going to be down there at that. So hopefully it's going to, I'm going to stay busy. And then there may be I haven't announced it in videos yet, but we've got a lot of people that's been contacting and talking about, the Silver Wolf stuff. Now that you're doing classes, Blackie, when are you going to do a class in Silver Wolf? When can we do a regular class, like a basics class or something? And we're kind of tentatively thinking about doing a winter survival type camp somewhere in January or February. We'll iron that out a little bit later, but I got to make sure my instructors got time off. And if they could do it, us do like a 3-day camp out somewhere like in North Georgia, maybe something like that, and do a winter camp out and talk about how to thrive in the winter environment. But that's in the works. Okay. And then skip a month, and somewhere in the end of March will be my gathering down here in 2025. And then probably May will be the next Silver Wolves, probably somewhere down here in the South. Those are the tentatives. So I will post this timeline a little bit later, but just giving y'all a heads up. The 19th is your birthday. Let's do it up. Okay. Choir boys. I'll bake you a little cake. Taxman, good evening. Michigan Silverback, good evening. Brett Johnson, I hear you. Yeah, y'all on the West Coast, y'all are getting it where that heat now is rolling up on that side. And the two jet streams, the Gulf never cooled down that much this year because the way that the jet streams were running, it didn't ever blow across it. And that El Nino, that heat in the Pacific, was up onto the side close to Mexico. So y'all are getting that heat now rolling up. So yeah, y'all, that Pacific Northwest, where y'all are normally getting the cold air coming south from Alaska and all. But still, it's like what? A daily high of 70 in San Francisco? What was it that Mark Twain said the coldest winter he ever spent was a summer in San Francisco? So that's where the cold water wells up right there at the bay. And so it's just a cold spot, natural refrigeration. Stephen, make one of the Silver Wolves in March or April in Michigan. I'd have to talk to my friends up there like Jonathan Frisbee. He's up in Upper Park up there, and Chris Hall. They're up there somewhere along the Canadian border in one of those states. It's either I think it's Michigan or Minnesota, one of those. And so, not saying it can happen, but we'll see. Yeah, Jeff, roofing in 100 degrees. Forget it. I spent 2 months on a roofing company in Lower Alabama in the sun. I started in May, and I was about late June. And we were working on a old place and really steep roof. And I remember I had baseball shin guards on and then padding because the roof was so hot. We had a manager that was just, he thought if he just yelled loud enough, life would fix itself. And we're trying to strip off all the old stuff and etc. And I had, you could tell where all these nails were, something had been nailed to the roof and it was sticking up. And so I got down on my knees and was taking a claw hammer, pulling them nails out, because you can't run fresh felt over the top of nails sticking up. And it was just so unbearably hot, and my hands were so sweaty. And I wore these fingerless gloves, like 3 layers, and I had pulled my gloves off and was doing like that, fanning my hands, trying to get the sweat and dry. And my manager came up, the supervisor came behind me and did like that and hit me, and I fell forward. And the minute my hands hit that old tar paper, they stuck. And when I jerked and managed to come back up and did like that, I went trying to peel them off, and I had all these burns all over my hands. I mean, blisters are starting up. And he's yelling at me, you know, you're wasting time. Get your blah, 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 blah. And I just calmly looked up at him, stood up, took off my tool belt, dropped my, said, get back to work. No. Unhooked the 2 shin guards, dropped them off. I walked over the lift and I said, I don't have to get back to work. And I went down, went and got my truck. So you just mail me a check. Bye. It was either that or throw him off the roof. And there was about 22 other guys up there, and they needed the job. So I decided not to throw him off the roof. But no, I don't have to get back to work. I'll find something else. Panther Country, good evening. Fishing Golf, good evening. Elvin, good evening. Tiny Titan, good evening. TW, thank you very much. Stephen Davis, hello. Terry, no, Mike Beliveau didn't leave YouTube. What happened was he had an accident. His basement, he was going down the stairs to his basement, and he flipped and slipped and fell and tore his arms up really bad, broke his arms, and a lot of muscle damage and stuff like that. He's a healthy sized guy, and he has been injured, and he is recovering. He is now being able to use his hands some and type a little bit, and he has started making some comments on Facebook, but he's just not well enough yet to get back to shooting videos. But you know, hope he will. I enjoy his videos. He's a good guy. TW, good evening. Yeah, for quite a while there, me and Mike Beliveau was like the 2 people that was putting out Captain Ball Revolver videos on YouTube. And I had started, and I have got lazy and have not, and I got to get back to posting onto Rumble my videos for my gun stuff, because it just, I got so swamped with this spring and everything else, and I was doing one every Saturday, and I've got a couple of things I need to get off my butt and get back and do videos on. It's just so hot now. You know, it's hard to be accurate shooting whenever you got sweat rolling in your eyes. So 7.5 to 5.5 Swiss carbine. I did back in the late 80s. A friend of mine had one of the straight pull rifles, but I do not remember any loads or anything for it, but I did load. I remembered it's kind of sensitive on neck length, the length of the cartridge, overall length, so you got to be kind of precise on that, because just to grunt too long starts giving you pressure problems. Because the lead in most of those rifles is so precision cut that the round, if it's stretched and you happen to keep your cases trimmed, you get to where it pinches just a little bit and your pressures start going up, and so you start getting erratic hits because pressure is not the same every shot. And so that's one of the things we learned with that, was we trimmed all of them to a given length, and then about every 3rd loading we'd make sure they're all the same length, and that seemed to cure that problem. Oh yeah, Will, yeah, Mike been a great rider. Y'all heard that Michael Venturino finally passed away not long ago. He was a big inspiration to me. I read his stuff, Gary James, of course, Skeeter Skelton, um, Elmer Keith, Rick Hacker, Gary James, Phil Spangbergler. They would write about black powder stuff occasionally, and that was, which other stuff I love too. But single action and stuff like that, and I read a lot of their stuff. And then whenever they were starting to fade out, that's whenever Mike came in, and Mike started writing a lot, and I read a lot. In fact, I got a file folder over about that where I saved articles of Mike going back 20, 25, 30 years ago now, probably more, to be honest. And enjoyed his work. And I had him on my Facebook. I talked to him a few times. We weren't like friends, close. We just spoke on Facebook and occasionally. And he was a very, very nice man, very intelligent. He really got into collecting his World War II guns there toward the end. And it kind of got away from a lot of the black powder stuff. But I can understand it. He was a really good guy and a big influence. Yeah, Terry, Mike hadn't done any new videos in a while now because of that. He should be probably in September. I think he was saying somewhere along in there he should be able to start doing videos again. So, John Taffin, yeah. John Taffin was a big writer and a lot of good books by him. Sure shot, sharp, excuse me. Blackie, what essential items do you think we all need in case of a bad incident happens in the U.S.? You need to have in your vehicle, whatever you're commuting back and forth to work or whatever, at least 3 days worth of supplies and basic stuff to get you home. So that pair of boots that's still good, but they're dirty and you don't want to wear them out in public, those are good. You want clothes that are not first rate. You want them to look a little bit worn, a little bit dirty, because when you're walking beside the road in certain these events, you don't want to attract attention. You do not want to look like you got anything worth taking. Okay, so you want older, worn-looking gear. Pack, don't have the newest state-of-the-art whatever. Somebody's going to notice that. Have an old Alice pack or some old book bag or whatever. Make it look like it's falling apart. Put duct tape on the thing. Make it absolutely structurally sound. Make it look like it's falling apart. And you want to be able to know how to get home without a GPS. It amazes me today how many people live by that thing, and you ask them, tell me how to get somewhere, and they have no clue unless they put it in their phone. So know how to navigate and alternate routes if weather, storm, civil unrest, whatever happens, to get you back home. At home, you need at least 3 months worth of supplies sitting there of water, food, basic stuff like that, being able to cook and provide for yourself, basic camping gear. Having camping gear that I can load up in the vehicle, load up because my stuff is in tubs already, not on some nice, beautiful shelf with no way to carry it, but in tubs that I can pull out of a closet or out of the garage, throw in the back of a vehicle, and move to a safe location because for some reason I got to abandon here. So I have 3 months worth. And as far as firearms and etc., that's your personal choice and etc. And you need to have a supply. You need to have skill and ability with it and be practical with it for self-defense and for being able to feed yourself and etc. And have some place to go, even if it's just an area, realizing that a lot of other people are going to be thinking about going to that lake, that forest, that whatever. Pick places that are not so obvious if possible, and go for something like that is what I recommend in a basic. And if you go back and look at the old ways videos that me and Bear are putting on his channel, we talk a lot about this, about where you can get resources, how you can find out stuff from your local government, etc. and stuff like that for being prepared for hard times. So that's more we focus on that over there. So you may want to go watch those videos. Bad Axe Survival. Do you prefer black powder over modern guns? Not necessarily, but I do not discount black powder. It's a hobby. I enjoy it. I like the challenge of it. But I have as much, if not more, knowledge over AR-15s, AK-47s, SKSs, M60s, 1911s, Browning high powers, Smith and Wessons. I did gunsmithing. I just don't do that on my channel. I have as much knowledge of that as I do about witchcraft, bushcraft. So I own modern and black powder. I enjoy black powder, and I use it a lot as a carry gun when I go to the field because I just enjoy the nostalgia and the challenge of it. Like somebody won't use bow and arrow to hunt, but I also have modern stuff that I use on occasion for what it's best designed for the given need. Okay, so that's where I go with that. Nicholas, okay, Redhawk just sent you payment. Thank you very much. I'll go check my stuff after this, make sure everything's on the list. Now, understand that what I started for the Redhawks earlier, we capped that off last Friday, and so that will be coming in mid-September. Anything past that will be coming in by mid-October because we had to cut off a run, pay for it so they can start making it. And I started another run, and you can order a Black Hawk as part of that, so I'll have to put you in that run. But I will lock you down, etc. But that's, if I can sneak it in, I'll do it. But he's already started making the Redhawk run that was just Redhawks. And so we did a maximum run on that. So I'll do my best to get it to you as quick as possible. Okay, where are we at? There we go. Yeah, TW. Beans, bullet, bandages, and Bibles. Preacher Man, good evening. Harold, good evening. Yeah, Tony Wilson, that's correct. Find a way. It's a great resource to be able to use GPS. I fully concur with that. But have a map, at least a road map. Because things can happen. One of the first things that happens down here, it can be hard in EMP. But let me tell you, one of the first things that happens down here in the south when hurricane hits, the towers go down. And in an emergency situation, especially over a large area, they intentionally take them offline, those that are functioning, and slave them so that first responders and stuff have first dibs. So you are bottom of the list. And so that's the reason you hear about after Katrina and a lot of these big hurricanes and big, huge area effects that suddenly their GPS don't work. Nothing works because it's talking to a tower to get that information unless you have a satellite phone. And so because of that, oh, my nose is itchy. First responders get first dib and you go to the bottom of the list. So have a map and at least have a working knowledge on how to do it. Because I know guys, they have no clue how to navigate unless it's by GPS. Yeah, Preacher Man, having an older, like I said, set of clothes, because you don't know what's going to happen when you have to leave out. Maybe you're wearing a dress suit because your job, you're wearing a suit. And you're going to have to walk out having good hiking boots, some clothes that can be durable in all weathers, etc., and not attract attention is a big plus. I have a change of clothes that I can swap into to get me home no matter what I'm wearing. If it becomes what I'm wearing is okay, then it's just extra. And in a car, carry about 6 feet of 5/8 inch tubing and a siphon so you can get gas from other vehicles if you need to. If their vehicle is broke down but it's got gas in it and you need gas, a lot of people don't think about that, Dead Prepper. Good evening, Blackie. Have you ever ingested turpentine for medicinal use? My grandmother had me swallow turpentine. You used to be able to go to the drugstore and they had bottles of medical turpentine. You know, that now for what it was for, I don't remember, but I do remember as a child getting a dose of turpentine. I've had a dose of castor oil many times and several other things. But as far as what they were giving me the dose for, I really don't remember. Shore Sharp, glad you enjoy them. Yeah, Brett Johnson, the error was compounded on a long thing. That was to keep somebody from targeting rockets or something like that. Um, you had a zone because back the company I worked for back in the 80s was the one that was setting up GPS for military application for guidance systems for cruise missiles and stuff like that. And so if you're here within at that time back then, things have changed. If you were in 25 miles, it gave you correct information. Or 10 miles? 10 miles. It gave you correct information. The further out you went, the bigger that error became. Military didn't have that error. And that was to keep you from being here and targeting something 60 miles away. Were accurate fire. They couldn't do it, but up close, for civilians, it was the same. It's just when you start getting out of the box that fuzzy got true. And I remember the first successful cruise missile launch happened in lower Alabama and was fired, and it flew and crash landed north of Mobile in them swamps using GPS as the targeting system. Problem with it was supposed to be hitting a barge out in the Gulf, and we were about 4 months away from time to actually launch it when they accidentally triggered it and it launched. And the last targeting it had was a mountain in Arizona, so it turned to face Arizona and it launched. They had it on news down here about the first successful launch. It just ran out of fuel before it got to Arizona. It only made it to Mobile. It was a training shot, But that's a story I'll tell some other day. Will 38 Special 4-1? Yeah, works very well. And if you get a lever action in 357, man, you open up a world of possibilities because the powder that's used for 38s and 357s is really designed for like a 4-inch barrel. So when you get a super snubby, it's not as powerful as it says on the box because the powder doesn't get the chance to burn before the bullet leaves the barrel. Flip that, when you put it into an 18-inch barrel on a lever action 92, you add 300 to 500 feet per second. So now, if I had one of the little short trapper models, and off chronograph and everything, I documented this. If I took a 38 Special case with a round ball in it and just a couple of grains of smokeless powder in it of a certain load, I could load that in the back, and that ball left the barrel at 1,000 feet per second. I could shoot rabbits and squirrels with it. If I dropped a standard 38 Special into it, what came out the barrel duplicated 357 because I'm adding 300 to 500 feet per second. So that's the difference between 38 and 357. So anything a 357 handgun would do, that carbine would do. But if I put a full bore 357 into it, it did anything that a 30-30 would do at about 150 yards. I poleaxed deer at 125 yards with it because the size of the bullet, 357, 30-30, 308. Weight of the bullet, 158 grains. Weight of the bullet, 150 grains. Moving at the same speed. It was actually a 38 Remington is what I was duplicating, which is a favorite bear cartridge up in Maine out of that little bitty short 7-pound carbine. And so depending on what I put in the back of it is what I was hunting. One gun to rule them all in lower Alabama, and then having a sidearm in it that was concealable so I could carry the two together. Great combo. One powder across the board. Same bullet gave you different performance on which one it was put into. I've recommended that to many, many people. If you're looking for something like that, get a 38 special or 3-7 revolver and a 3-7 lever action rifle. You're good. You know, learn how to shoot it. You're really good. Jeff, Bear and Blackie, when can we expect the cookbook? Huh, Bear? Huh? When's your cookbook coming out, Bear? Huh? I will be contributing what little I can to Bear's cookbook. It'll be the Old Ways cookbook from Bear. You heard it here. Correct. Brett Johnson, I believe that. Yeah. Which I also remember oil of Ipecac makes you throw up. I remember being small, like 5 or 6, and them sitting me down and make me. I don't remember why. I just remember they made me drink uh, turpentine because Granny kept turpentine, medicinal turpentine. Now, what it was for, I don't know. But I do remember her pouring it into a spoon and said, "Now, take a deep breath. I'm gonna put this on your tongue. You swallow it, then you breathe out. You know." And then she'd give you Donald Duck pineapple juice. Now, here's something for you parents and for you old people as well. When you got some sort of medicine that just tastes horrible, the best cover I have ever found is pineapple juice, cold pineapple juice. So take a swallow, throw the pill or whatever the nasty medicine is, and then chase it with pineapple juice. They won't taste nothing but pineapple juice. It'll mask it. And I have several seniors that have had to take stuff that just tasted horrible. Pineapple juice is the best thing I have found to mask. So, hope that helps. Ground fog, good evening. Preacher man, I'm sorry to hear that. Take a sheepdog, I hear you. I don't know. I like to watch it with a big old box of popcorn, you know. But hey, that's me. Yeah, the Rossi 92 and 45 Colt is really good. I've got one in 45 Colt right now. And it's not quite as versatile as the 38 357, but very, very useful. And so I've got a handgun and a lever action in 45 Colt. And I hope to pick up another 45 Colt. I've been trying to sweet talk somebody that's got an old Colt 1917. Smith & Wesson 1917 in 45 Colt. And if I can get a hold of that eventually, which I'd love to have. I know they don't do it anymore, but there was when I was gunsmithing years ago, which is 40 years ago now. Smith & Wesson would, you could send them a gun and they'd make a new cylinder, right? So I had a 1917 and 45 ACP. I sent them the gun minus the cylinder and said I wanted a cylinder fitted in 45 Colt, and they sent me a 45 Colt. So I had it with 2 cylinders that would shoot 45 ACP, 45 auto rim, and swap cylinders, 45 Colt. Now you did take one screw out and slid the cylinder out, put the new cylinder in, tighten the screw up, and so that was it. And I had a case that had 2 of them on there, and that was a lot of fun to shoot. And we'll do that, preacher man. Safe journeys for her passing. Okay, Bad Axe. Blackie, can you touch a bit on medical? I think that's one not a lot of touching on. You're talking about in survival, etc., or get home, etc. Some of the stuff off the shelf that you should have in your kit is Imodium and stuff like that, Pepto-Bismol, stuff like that, tablets and liquid. You also need basic stuff like aspirin. Aspirin is good for dang near anything as long as your stomach can handle it. Okay. You also need some sort of anti-inflammatory if possible, which ginger is a great anti-inflammatory. And so ginger tea, stuff like that, is a great anti-inflammatory. So when something got injured, etc. Also, the rub-on things of lidocaine for you find them where you got arthritis and stuff. It's rub-on. Great for just about stings, cuts, whatever. After it's all quit bleeding and everything, go around and it'll help numb the area and let them nerves settle down and reduce pain in that. You know, of course, basic bandages, splints, stuff like that are a great thing to have. Come up with your own little kit. A tackle box works great. One or some sort of pouch, etc., can handle that. And get the Boy Scout first aid manual. Common sense, plain English on how to deal on so many common problems that you can take care of in the field. Then look up something like, and me and Bear discussed this when we were doing the old ways. There's a book called Where There Is No Doctor and the U.S. Army Special Forces Medical Handbook. Those deal with things that you ain't got training for, but there's a lot of stuff in there that you can adapt to. And so as well as see if you got the Red Cross put on free first aid classes in a lot of places. A lot of colleges put on free first aid classes in a lot of places. And so you may want to consider doing that. The important thing is having the resources and the knowledge to understand what you're looking at and how not to make the situation worse. That's the biggest thing. Doing nothing is worse many times than anything else. But at least having a good working idea of how to deal with a compound fracture, how to do if somebody's been severely injured and their jaw is shattered, how do you get liquids into them, things like that. You know, those things you need to have a working knowledge of. And it's just getting books on it and learning, taking the time. And of course, I'd recommend taking some of the classes. Rewild, hello, brother. I was telling them earlier about your gathering in December. I'll be going down there. Metalworks Welding. Blackie, what are your thoughts on the 12 gauge shotgun adapters? I have a few. I have a 38 and I have a 9mm and I think I have a 45. Yeah, 410, 45 Colt. I have all those. The longer rifled ones are much more practical than the short ones. The short ones do go bang, and if you're looking for something just to change in for a defensive type thing inside of a house, yes, that works great because you're 0 to 20 feet. But if you're wanting something you should be able to hunt with, get the longer, like 9-inch rifled. With my single barrel shotgun, with my 9-inch rifle, 9mm, I can keep all shots in a group like that at about 30 yards, 30 to 40 yards, which is more than I need out of a deer stand in Alabama looking at deer. And a good hollow point, a deer is about the same size as a human. If it'll stop a human, it'll stop a deer. And 9mm is known for over penetration, not under. And so they work well. They can be very viable, especially in a long-term situation. I had somewhere around here, I probably done put it up, one of the things that it's stacked. So it's 12 gauge, 20 gauge, 410, and a 22, and they all stack together. And so I can drop it into a 20 gauge and be able to shoot 22 long rifle, 410, 45 Colt. And if I drop that up into a 12 gauge, I can put the adapter in and shoot 20 gauge and 12. So it gives me a lot of choices for something to go bang. It's just take the time and find it. But they can be very viable in a kit. They really are. Common Sense Karen, good evening. Oh yeah, you got to wait for the temperature drop. Yeah. Yeah, correct. 10 pairs. Benadryl, useful for so many things, um, for bug bites, etc., and anything you're having an allergic reaction to, which can be a lot of stuff. And of course, if you're going to be talking about true survival stuff, throw in a thing of oil of ipecac. If somebody ingests something, yes, you can grind up charcoal, but you make them take a big swig of oil of ipecac, they're going to puke. And if it's something they've eaten that's doing it, you'll get it out of them. So, yeah, preacher man, that's the thing. Um, Having had born late into a family and having a lot of elderly family, I saw that a lot where they would go into a care or something like that, and it was always amazing. About the time their money was running out, it was just magical that they got 4 months left and then they don't have no more money, and suddenly they just went to sleep. I felt they were overdosing them to put them out, make room for the next money maker. But I have no proof on that. Yeah, Brett, there's a book called Where There Is No Doctor, Where There Is No Dentist. Nobody thinks about this. Where There Is No Dentist, a good book, and several others. Look them up. And having your own little library can be life saving. Rewild, glad to do it, brother. Texas Sheepdog. I use, oh, come on now. It's my adapters. Who makes those? Oh, now. It'll come to me in a minute. But I got mine in 9 millimeter and 38 special and 45 Colt and 410 and 22 for mine. Dave Canterbury was working with him for a while, making the adapters, the Pathfinder series. I, I keep bringing up the wrong word in my head, guys, for the name of it, but it's very usable. If you go look up gun adapters, several other companies that make them as well. So put in 20 gauge cartridge adapter and see what pops up. Yeah, I agree. Texas Sheepdog 410 is very hard to find. And when it is, wow. Because the same machines that can run 410 can run rifle cartridges. And so they just don't want to, they're making more money selling 308. Because you got to remember, there's a war on. So anything that could make a 308 or a 5.56, that machine needs to be humming, because we're sending this to Ukraine. And so hard to get 410 made when that machine could be pumping out millions of rounds of 5.56 or 7.6239. I understand they're making them too. Oh, cool. TW, those Canadian blankets are good. Metalworks turning a 12 gauge into a muzzleloader does work. It can be very viable, especially if you got your own molds and anything. Cheap, poor man way to do it, instead of getting that adapter, simply to take a standard 12 gauge shell that's been fired, punch out the primer, punch in the new primer, put the stuff in there, and stick it in the gun. It'll shoot black powder. Put the ball in the end of the case and just chamber it in the back, and not have to load it that way. The short lane adapters. Thank you, William. Short lane is what I use, and it does work well to push that in and turn it into a muzzleloader, as long as your shotgun doesn't have a choke. Because if it's a choke, the ball that comes down the barrel must be under bore size. See, because it's too tight. A long choke is a funnel, and if you got one that's a cylinder bore, yeah, you can load a full size 75 caliber ball in it. Go right ahead. But if it's undersized, it's whatever can go past that choke. And then once it goes down about that far, it gets loose falling down the barrel. I prefer to just eject the shell out and fix it somehow into the shell. See, bang, same idea. I can take the shell and reload it, and about the same time you'd load it as a muzzleloader. Because all I got to do is pump out the primer, put the new primer in it, press it in, pour the powder, put me a piece of water up there, push it down with a stick, put the ball on the top of it, thumb press it down, stick it in. I'm ready to go. So it's a two-sided thing. I see where they're going, but I've never, in fact, I've got right here. That is the 410 shotgun adapter to a muzzle loader, where you can put the 209 primer in the back of it. But I've never loaded and fired it with that because I don't have a 410 shotgun right now. Wow, badass. I don't think they just may not be producing them. One of the reasons I think that 410s are still going to be produced is the Judge shotgun pistols and carbines. Hugely popular. Those Taurus 410s. Next, the Marlin that can be gotten in a 410, and there's a copy that looks like a Winchester 94, but it's a 410. Plus the actual shotguns, plus in 4 cartridge skeet competitions, you got to have 4 skeet calibers: 410, 12 gauge, 20, and 16 or 28. And so they got to make them, sooner or later. Maybe they'll do them in limited runs, but which you can make 410. All you need is a 4570 brass, fire format, and then you get a 410 loading set and pour it in the top and push cards down in the top. I did that years and years ago to load for a old wore out 4570 trapdoor. I mean, the rifle was gone, and we just ran a hone up and down it and shined it up. And I took 4570 brass and turned it into 410 shotgun. And the poor old gentleman that had it, he hunted rabbits and squirrels with it. Rewild. My wife and I both carry 9mm. I find it both worth, accurate, etc. In your opinion, 9mm carbine worth having? Yes. Again, the 9mm suffers from over penetration. With a 9mm, if you're going to be using it for self-defense, you have to have a hollow point or some sort of expanding ammunition, because a solid is going to go 36 inches through a medium. Well, you can penetrate a big animal with that. And so putting it into a 9mm carbine, you're adding velocity, again, just like the 38-357 because of that. And it's a very small cartridge, very frugal on both lead and powder, because it is such a small cartridge. It doesn't use a big hunk of powder. And so therefore, they are worth it. They really are. The problem with the semi-automatic in a 9mm is hot ejection. The Marlin Camp carbine was that way, and I haven't tried the Ruger one. But when you'd fire, it would eject the brass 25 yards. I mean, it launched the thing into orbit. We used to put up big old sheet of heavy cardboard, and it would just embed the dang brass and beat the brass up, because it would just blow back for that 9. So it was hot ejection, and it was tough on the brass. But you can get 9mm in a revolver. They make them. You can get them in a single action army. They now make them. You can get it in an M1 carbine. Chiappa makes an M1 carbine that's a 9mm. I believe it uses Glock mags. Is good. And then of course K-Tel and all of them, Caltech, made 9mm carbines. All of them are really viable as both a self-defense, urban, and short range. Especially like Rewild here in our beloved South, you can't see 50 yards unless you're out in the field. So if you see game, it's right there. Consequently, if it's a two-legged varmint, it's right there, because you can't see unless you're standing in the middle of a peanut field or something. And so, because of that, it's a very viable caliber, easy to reload, very robust. The only thing is, like I said, if it's semi-automatic, you ain't finding that brass. It's gone. So that's my one drawback to it. You're not, preacher man. I understand. We're just sorry for your loss. ATW, that wouldn't be bad. That's a good price for them. Tony, yeah, clove oil was often used to help numb for teeth and stuff like that. Now, what I did in the past when I had a bad tooth that was giving me hell and it was abscessed, I would go get Goody's powder and put it directly on the gum right beside of it, and it will actually leach around the tooth and numb it. Yes, you're going to burn the gum a little bit, but it would take the teeth out of an abscess so you could at least get some rest. Um, I'm not recommending that over actually getting to a professional and getting it fixed, but finely ground up aspirin can work. Yes, Texas Sheepdog. The judge will shoot 410 and 45 Colt, but it's actually a 410. There's hardly any rifling in it. When you look down, it's just a fine spiral. And so people say, oh, this would be the best of both worlds. It ain't. If you put rifling in it, that's going to stabilize that 45 Colt slug for any kind of real accuracy beyond like 10 yards. It tears up the shot patterns, and so now you can't hit nothing with a shotgun. And in those days, you couldn't legally have a short barrel shotgun. So they listed it as a 45 Colt that you could put shot cartridges into, but it's actually 410 shotgun. And that's what it's really in actuality. If you'll load 45 slug in a 410 slug, you'll have better long range accuracy than you will with a 45 Colt. Because I've had several friends that got them, and then they're handgun shooters. They'd step up to 25-yard range, and they'd have these trash can lid groups out of a 45 Colt and could not figure out why. And it's because of that there's hardly any rifle. If you look down the barrel, it's just a swirl. And it's because it's really a shotgun. Great for up close, what it was designed for. Taking care of snakes, taking care of varmints, small game, stuff like that. Two-legged varmints up close with triple-aught buckshot. Works well. But the 45 Colt might as well be called a slug out of it because it just ain't nothing there to stabilize it. Texas Sheepdog, they do make takedown arrows. Years ago when Dave Canterbury was doing the sling bow, he had found a company that had these three-piece take-apart arrows. So it had like like the threading like you get on the end of a broadhead. You had like a 6-inch or so section of arrow, and then it ended in one of those threads, and it screwed in to the next section of arrow, and that screwed into the back section arrow, so you had a full-size arrow, but it was in 3 pieces. They do make them. Now, how much that's going to be? And if you go through archery supplies, because I remember when I was teaching archery for Boy Scouts of America, and part of the thing is they had to make an arrow. If you look in the archery supply catalogs, they have all those nocks and everything where you yourself could take a full-size arrow, cut it with a tubing cutter, put in the thread part sticking out and the female part sticking in and make a 3-piece arrow. If you wanted to do that, to have it take apart, because you just make you a sling bow and be able to have take apart arrows to go with it. Preacher man, I understand. Ron Spoomer, Alaskan guy, suggested 9mm as a bear repellent. His girls carry them in the field. I was shocked to hear that. That's because one will not stop a bear. Chick. I bet a 19-round magazine. You ever seen a scared girl? I bet you she could stack them in there too. 19 of them yellow jackets will. The guy that was writing for Rifle Mag, and he was talking about the #1 rifle in Alaska at that time in 223 in a semi-automatic was not the AR platform, but was actually the Ruger Mini 14. And he said, I see him at all the hunting camps. It's the cook's gun that they keep in camp to take, shoot a grouse, shoot a wolf, shoot a bear if it wanders in. And somebody immediately went back and challenged him. So I don't think the 223 is in any way adequate to even be considered for bear. And he responded back and said, you're right, one won't. Have you ever seen a scared cook with a 30-round mag? I bet you 30 of them will. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Amazing how fast they can shoot when they're scared. So 9mm will work as long as you got enough of them. Common sense care, clove oil. I've used clove oil. I know a lot of people that have, and it has worked. In fact, that putty you get at the drugstore now, the oral gel pellet, if you read it between the lines, it's basically clove oil in a putty form. Takes a sheepdog. Glad to help. Lamb and Doc, hello to Rainsville. North Carolina, Piedmont, good evening. Yeah, 55 grain soft point and a 223 and a 30-round mag. You can stack them in there. It's going to do the job. Mark Burris, they said a 9mm Buffalo bore hard cast dropped to bear a while back. I can believe it. The 9mm is known for over penetration. And so when you put it on something big, it just goes deep. And so if you can hit a brain, hit a spine, hit something vital with it, it's a drill. It's a really good drill. So takes a sheepdog. I remember Dave Canterbury having, hello Dakota, having 3-piece arrows on his sight itself. That was many years ago when he was selling the sling bow attachment. And I recall, and Steve Kingsbury, good evening. A guy that he had a take apart recurve bow, and he was flying by bush plane into places. And he had made take in half arrows by doing that, of taking the tubing cutter and cutting them, putting the new socket in and the new threaded part in the middle. And then he had to balance it. You have to go through a balancing, to make sure it's not wobbly and that it's got the proper weight forward. I think he said he had to change his arrowhead and go from like 100 grain to 115 or 125 grain to make sure it's weight forward enough, because he's putting weight in the middle. And other than that, he was putting them together. It was in an archery mag years ago, and he was going up in Canada and landing a bush plane in the field somewhere in the middle of wherever and going out and hunting things with it. So yeah, preacher man, that's it. 44 Magnum all is a sledgehammer, but there's too much recoil. That was the very reason that Elmer Keith, who is what you'd call the creator of the 44 Magnum, actually stressed the 41 Magnum for law enforcement, because at that time law enforcement was toting 38s and 357s. And he said that it was more controllable than the 41, but it was more punch than the 357. And so, very true. You load hot at 44 Magnum, it's artillery coming at you. but you're not going to get many shots off before A, it's a 6-shot revolver or whatever, and B, the recoil, you're bucking up here, and every time you got to come back on sight. Whereas a 9, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You can stay on sight and just keep walking them. Especially if this is not for hunting, this is defense. Big mag, click. Yep. One of them 9mm carbines. Plus, boom, bam. Them things is loud, And so you're intimidating, Before you have to actually shoot that bear, you might want to fire 1 or 2 rounds in the dirt in front of him. If he hadn't started charging, but he's showing aggression, let him hear that bang, bang, and throw dirt up. And maybe he'll decide to go somewhere else and mess with somebody else's kill. Mark Burris, good evening. Justin Coon, Blackie, you sold me on the 4440. I love the 4440 because to me, the 4440 performs like the 44 Magnum. We're talking about 75, 80 yards. The 44 Magnum has a higher weight and a higher velocity, but loses it very fast. Whereas the 4440 is really coming out the barrel like a hot 44 special, and shoots a little flatter, if you ask me. So between those two, I like the 4440. Then again, I like black powder stuff. I like old stuff. I'm an old guy. I like old stuff. And I've been using my 4440 that I got in like 1980s, like 81, 82. I was either right in the tail end or right after high school. I got that, and I've had it ever since. I've taken deer, hog, just about everything with it. It was my sole home defense weapon more than one time. Big old 10-pound Henry rifle. If I don't hit him, I'll bludgeon him to death with it. So. Yeah, Tony Wilson, it's one of the things. It's quality versus quantity. If I can't have quantity, the power of a 44 Magnum, then I want quantity to fit that. At the same time, I can be more precise with that 9 because I can get on target and stay on target. So bear breaks cover at 25 yards of the dead run, you've got about 4 seconds. And the average person, if they're a decent shot, can empty a 19-round clip in 4 seconds. At the same time, they may get 1 or 2 shots off with a 44 Magnum in 4 seconds. So, I want to give him the opportunity. I want to make a noise, spook him off if I can. I don't want to have to hurt this animal. He's doing what he's designed to do. But at the same time, I have no interest in becoming supper. So. Buckeye 80, yeah, the old deer stalker, deer slayer, Ruger 44 Magnum Ruger rifle. Those were nice. Dan Lutz wanted one of those pretty badly. Will, could you do a video on your 1860 Henry rifle? Yeah, I need to do that. Thank you. I've been focusing on black powder handguns, but you're right. I'll do my Henry in 4440, then I'll do my handgun, which is single action army, in 4440, and then I'll do like my 92 carbine in 45 Colt, and then I'll show you my cartridge conversion in 45 Colt, and compare apples and oranges and etc. TW, very true. A lot, the bears that have been around people should be afraid of people. If they haven't, if they've been raiding garbage cans and everything else because they're right outside Anchorage and they come to the city dump and etc. Yeah, but if they ain't and they're being kind of aggressive toward you, the sound may be something they're not used to, and so it may spook them off. I want this animal to go somewhere else. I don't want to have to kill him if I can avoid it, you know. But on the flip side of that, I had a good friend. He was way up yonder in northern Alaska, working for an oil company where they would fly into areas and set up seismic detectors and things like that. And he talked about seeing a polar bear. Polar bear sees you, he's coming. There ain't no, he might, you're food, period, to him. And they would have to just load up in the plane and leave or bring out the 12 gauges. Because you could shoot at him, he could care less. He wouldn't even break stride, you know. And he talked about one time, he said, I shot that bear 4 times with buckshot, and he didn't even react. He was sideways on, and I pumped around right in front of him. He didn't react. So I pumped one into his rear section, and he didn't even turn around. You saw it hit him, and you saw him start bleeding. He turned and looked at him like, what? So, you know. Chris Evans, good night. Oh, Andy Knight, good. Yeah, that's what I use is that lemon eucalyptus. Repel lemon eucalyptus. That's what I use. It works well for me. Keeps gnats and stuff. And like I said, if the gnats are bothering you around your eyes, which you have to have sand around your area. I didn't know that until recently. Gnats need sand as part of their reproductive cycle. And why the gnats get around our eyes is they cannot lick water from surface water. The surface tension is too great. They can't break it, but they can lick your eyes or lick sweat off your skin. They can do that because the actual droplets are smaller. And so that's why. So I have taken Vicks Vapor Rub and put up here around my nose and around my eyes, down here on my cheeks, to keep gnats away from my eyes before. You know, because they were gnat away and stuff like that, but they'll drive you nuts. Yeah, Mark Birds, that was the thing. When 357 Maximum came out, way too much. It was the powder doing it. Because what was happening, it wasn't the bullet. It was the powder they were using to get that velocity was such a blowtorch. It was actually kind of crystallizing the surface of the barrel, kind of scorching it. And then the next round would wipe it out. And then kind of like imagine taking toast and overcooking toast and it comes out black and you scrape it off. Well, that's what was happening every time you fired, and especially if you fired 2 or 3 close together. That heat was building up in that barrel, and that flash was actually, it was the powder that was doing it. And nobody at that time had a powder that could produce that kind of velocity that wasn't damaging the gun. Now that I've heard they're bringing it back, I hope it's because our powder technology has come up to get that velocity without that flash cooking barrels. Okay. I have a question. A wedge in a black powder gun that is so tight that it feels like it's welded, and the revolver has never been shot. What do I do? Tap it loose just a little and fire the gun a couple times, because what's going to happen is that steel will compress and it'll become looser. That is the sacrificable part of the Colt system. That's the reason Colt just didn't make it where it's screwed together. It had to be a wedge because he knew metallurgically that shock of firing that steel is actually more elastic than rubber. We used to do a demonstration in college where we would take a steel ball about that big and a rubber ball the same size, and we'd drop both of them at 6 feet onto a feather pillow. Neither one will bounce because it's too soft. And we'd walk over and we'd drop it on the concrete, and that rubber ball would go like 18, 20 inches in the air. Steel ball would go about that high. Concrete's too soft. And then you'd drop them both onto a steel anvil, and the steel ball would go double the height of that rubber ball. You finally found something hard enough to make it bounce. So when that steel wants to do that, at steel, that's going to do it. And that wedge is softer than the barrel or the auger to be the sacrificial part. So it's never been shot. It's just good and tight. Once you shoot it, you just tap it just where you got good rotation. Don't knock it out, but you know what I mean. That hook that's on the Colt wedge, make sure that hook is up and start shooting it. And it won't take probably 20, 30 shots, and it'll go in a little bit. That's the reason it's tapered to go in as a wedge, not flat-sided. It's because as you fired the gun, that wedge would wear out over time. Usually somewhere around 1,000 rounds, you needed to change that wedge because it'd be driven all the way home, and you'd fire, and it got to where the barrel started getting a little bit loose. You changed the wedge. That was the sacrificable part of the system. Oh yeah, TW. The moose is actually more dangerous than the bears in many ways. He's just big enough; he'll just run over you and stomp you to death. You know, I told somebody one time that was going up there. He said, "What do you think about moose?" I said, "Moose is a Clydesdale with a bulldozer blade on his head." To give you a visual reference. And after he actually saw a real big bull moose, he said, "You're right. It looks like a freaking Clydesdale horse with a bulldozer blade on his head." Yep. They'll stomp you in the ground in a heartbeat. Travis, Blackie, what is your opinion of the Whammo Power Master crossbows of the 60s? Are they any account? A lot of them old steel spring, wooden stock crossbows worked okay for deer hunting out of a stand or hog hunting fairly close. But quite often, the problem with it was they were made cheaply, be a novelty. And they had usually a steel wire for the bowstring on it. And the problem with that was it didn't pull evenly when it fired. And so often the accuracy was not that great because when you'd release, what it's actually trying to do is torque. Because you know, when that power slams into that arrow, it bends. And they had accuracy anywhere in a 360, high, low, left, right. And so they were not known for accuracy. They were fun. And I remember a lot of them in the 80s that were popping out everywhere. You could pick them up $50 a piece. And there was a lot of guys thought they'd hunt deer with them, and they figured out they couldn't hit a deer at 25 yards with it. So. Chris Evans, I'm looking for an 1860 Army conical mold, but I don't know what to get. Zero experience molding. The best bang for the buck is Era's Gone Bullet Molds, Kerr, Kerr bullet. That's what you want to get. They also make a Johnson & Dow. Some guns do not want to load easily with a Johnson & Dow, and you got to modify. But the Kerr bullet, I have shot the Johnson & Dow. I've also shot the other ones. The one you want is the Kerr, Kerr. And easy to load, accurate, hits well. So that's what, if just blinding like this, if you said pick one off the shelf, grab the Kerr. And get the book. I can do this without dumping all this crap on my head. Modern Reloading by Lee, because he's got a section in here where he talks about molds and how to mold and stuff. And the book is written in plain common English, explaining every teeny tiny step of how to do stuff for the common man. And so I think you can even find this online. But it's mostly about the reloading of the cartridges. But go look at leeprecision.com, and I think he's got videos out that are publicly available where he takes you step by step on how to use their molds to make. The Kerr bullet and from Arrows Gone Bullet Mold is a Lee mold. He's having them custom made. So that will tell you what you need to know to have a good working knowledge to begin with. Oh yeah, mudslinger, the old ridiculous longbows. When they used to shoot long range, it was more like artillery. And the Romans had a ballista that was a big bow like that, but it was not one man, it was sideways. And you would drop in the arrow, and then they had this thing that would wind it down to cock it like a crossbow, and they'd launch it. And these big arrows were really spears, is what they were, but they would be launching them into a formation, and you're sitting there looking at the guy coming at you, and this guy next to you gets shish kebabbed. Great psychological. So there was a lot of them weapons from way back then that we look at with dubious distinction today. But you got to understand them in the context. Like we call the country France today, and that was from the Frankish axe. They had a special type of axe. And so the guys up front, like 3 rows deep in the front of the attacking formation, would have like 5, 6, 7 of these axes hanging on. And at the command, they would all lob them as hard as they could throw them. And they could throw like 70, 80 yards, And then they'd start running toward you, and they'd lob again and lob again. So they're coming in. And when they got about 25, 30 yards out, they would throw it at the ground, and it would flip end over the ground. And so you're sitting here with your shield up, trying to avoid the raining death coming down. Then you had to try to come down because the one's coming at, and then the guys plowing to you, one in each hand. And it was a way of confusing the archers and everything else to let them get close enough to get into hand-to-hand range. And then they were just meat cleavers. They were windmilling through the middle of the formation. Everybody gets cut. Today we look at that. That would be stupid. Charge at somebody with an axe. You and 300 of your friends all throwing them. Yeah, the volume changes, depending on what you're doing. Yeah. 3-inch thick, 3 foot long, pound of iron. Yeah, ballista. Somebody get hit. It was like artillery. We didn't have cannons and stuff yet, right? But that would be the mindset we'd apply today. If somebody just got hit by a mortar, Joe was here. Joe's in pieces. It'll kill. Blackie, can you safely use wheel weights to make shot for old black powder shotguns without damaging the barrel, plus any throwing hatchet tips? Yes, you can. However, I need you to educate yourself. Wheel weights are either lead or zinc. Zinc's the shiny one. If you do a search online of wheel weights for bullet casting, stuff like that, and how to tell the difference, it'll tell you. They're marked different for that very reason, because you cannot melt zinc and lead together. They have 2 different melting points. Lead melts in the 780 something degree range, and zinc melts at 1,000 degrees, 900 to 1,000. And so when you try to combine them, you mess up. You make an alloy that doesn't work either way. It's too hard. And zinc is too hard to shoot out of gun barrels or to shoot out of a shotgun. That's the reason we use lead, because it is soft and it doesn't damage the barrels. And hatchet throwing tips. Yeah, Pace out your paces, usually about 7 steps. If you're right handed, start with your left foot facing forward, and you want to step forward and then throw it like you're throwing a baseball. Just bring it over your head and let it slide out of your hand. Don't try to stick it. Put a cardboard box out there and just hit the box. Learn how to hit the box. When you can hit the box, then try putting up a piece of plywood or something like that and see if you can make it stick. How did it hit? Did it hit handle facing up? And it's over rotating. Take a little step forward so it doesn't have time to rotate that far. You want to fly, turn the same amount of times every time. Throw it the same power, same strength. The game is you throw it, it makes one complete revolution, and it's edge on when it hits. That's basically it. Cow Tipper, good evening. Christopher Evans, best sources for quality molding lead. Go look on eBay and stuff and look up lead ingots for sale. You'll find people online that sell them. And the problem is shipping because they're toxic and they're heavy. But sometimes you get lucky and you can find a place not too far from you, and also look up salvage yards, metal recycler and salvage yards, like 30 miles from me in a place called Troy, Alabama. There's a factory that recycles batteries to get the lead out of them. And so they're going to turn that lead into wheel weights and stuff. In the past, there were ways to go up there and buy it in the bulk. Go up and buy it by the pound from them and cook it yourself. Now, if you want to buy the finished ingots, that was more expensive. But if you wanted it raw, it's just a hunks of lead that had been melted out of a battery with a blowtorch or whatever. It's a blob, and you're going to heat it up outside and get all those toxic things out of it, just like they do at the factory. You can get it much cheaper. And so you're just going to have to look around that way. But that is the best source. I can tell you right now is go look on eBay and stuff and look up lead casting ingots, and you get them and go from that. After that, start looking for sources of the metal foundry and stuff like that. Metal salvage yards, stuff like that may have lead that you can buy by the pound. We used to have a place down here in Dothan. They took in all kinds of metal and everything else. And I'd go down there and got any lead, and they were pointing to like that big diameter, that long of sections of like 8-inch diameter lead pipe that they had cut up was a sawzall, and each one of them sections was 10 pounds. And it was $8 or $10 for 10 pounds, almost $1 a pound. I could live with that. Another thing you can do is go look at shotgun pellets. Companies will say you a 25-pound bag. Go ahead and get a small diameter shotgun pellet like number 8s. It's 25 pounds of lead. No matter what form it's in, it's 25 pounds of lead. Melt that. That's just cold shot that's been rolled in a graphite. It'll smoke a little, and then it's over, and you can make a whole pot full easily. Don't get the bigger one. You're not getting heavier. You actually get more pellets, so they fit together better by small pellets. And I've done that in the past and melted those to make bullets, especially for black powder guns where you want real soft lead. Midway USA is good as well, Dakota. Yes, thank you. Yeah, Grumpy Alaska, because of the battery acid. Yeah, Tony Wilson. Usually that's 1F black powder as cannons as well, which is before you refine it into the other finer grades. Yep. Just about time we learn how to do something. They got to change how they make it so you can't use it anymore. Ain't that amazing? It'll kill. Blackie, do you know any tips about safely using lead or anything a man might know before getting into casting? Okay. Number one, plenty of ventilation. The fumes coming off of lead are toxic. They're not bad just sitting here as long as you got air flowing. You ain't got to wear a respirator if you're outdoors, got plenty of ventilation. But don't do it on your kitchen stove. Okay. Next, once lead is molten, and you can heat it up on a kitchen stove. Once it is molten, never, 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 never let water come to the lead because it will explode because it forms superheated steam like that. It's over double the heat that water turns to steam. So if you take and you're using a mold and you think, hey, it's got too hot, I'm going to cool it off. And I stick the sucker in water and I let it sizzle for a minute and I pull it out and it sits there and steam rolls off of it and the steam's gone. I think, okay, it's dry now. And I go to stick it under there, it's going to spit lead everywhere. Ask me how I know. So never bring water in contact with lead, period. As far as that. Now, once I've made the bullet into the mold, I want to drop it on something soft. I like to take cardboard and put it inside of a wooden box that I've got. And I'll knock the sprue over here in one corner because I'm going to re-gather those and remelt it. And then, in fact, if you'll go look in my Black Powder Revolver playlist, I show casting bullets and I talk about this. I actually cast bullets. So you may want to go look at that. But knock the sprue off, that piece that comes off the top, catch it because I'm going to scoop it up and put it right back in. Then open the mold, the ball or bullet will fall out. I want it to fall over here on the cardboard. Close the mold back up, go back, cast again. I'll run 8 or 10 in a row, knowing that mold's getting a little hot every time. Giving it just a little bit longer each time, let it cool a little bit. After I've run like 10 or 15, 20, I start seeing the mold is getting a little frosty. The bullet comes out a little frosty. That means it's getting too hot. I'll sit the mold down, closed up, and leave it. I like to run 2 molds. You know, one cast this and one cast that. Let's say I'm casting a 45 Colt and I'm casting a 36. I want something I can visually tell them apart. I'm casting them in the same pile because once they cool, I can separate them, right? Hands, wear those disposable gloves. You don't want the lead on your stuff. It's not going to hurt you that way, just touching you, but you don't want to get it in your mouth, etc. So after I have cast, they have cooled where they're safe to touch, usually about 20, 25 minutes, you know, depending on the atmospheric conditions. I will then divide them up and inspect each bullet, make sure that it isn't flawed or whatever. If it's flawed, it goes back in the melt pile. The ones that look good are separated out to this is those 45s and this one's those 36s. And then I will usually coat them, tumble coat them, take a big gallon Ziploc bag, freezer bag. I'll put a little bit of liquid Alox available from Lee's Precision, just a little dollop in there. Put the bullets in there and then roll them around inside the back, and that coats them. One, it adds lubrication. 2, it keeps lead dust to a minimum. See, so they're safer to handle down the line whenever I'm loading. After I've been handling bullets for any amount of time, I want to take my gloves off, wash my hands thoroughly before I eat or anything like that. Simple basic knowledge. Smoking as well. So don't always have the gloves on. Hello, Ed. Welcome to the party. Yeah, that's the thing that I've been casting lead bullets. In fact, I never bought ammunition for a cap and ball revolver until I was in my 50s. I always cast it. Just how I got started in it. And on muzzleloading rifles and stuff like that, I always just made my own bullets. If I got a gun, I got a mold. So I had a 36 round ball in 375. I later got a 380. Then I had a 451, a 454, and a 457 mold over time as I needed it. Right. I had a 9mm mold, a 38 special mold, a 45 Colt, 4440, 44 magnum mold, 3030 mold, 30-06, 308 mold, 30 carbine mold. Lee Precision has a lot of molds that are applicable. And I would make my own bullets because it was cheaper, a lot cheaper. And that way I could afford to practice and get good with the gun. That way when I bought that high dollar hunting ammunition, I already knew where the gun was going to hit and everything. So whenever I dropped in that high dollar and I went out and just shot 1 or 2 rounds to verify that they were shooting in my sights, then I'd hunt with it. See? But for target shooting or practicing, it was always my own loads. And that way I kept up with it. And here's another little tip I'll pass on. And that was X ammunition. I knew that, like, for example, my 45 HP, and it varies in caliber, how much bam, boom, etc., how long a life the brass has. 38 special with target loads, I'd normally load over 100 times before I retired that brass, unless I saw weakness. But usually standard target load, stuff you just went out and planked with, they went 100 rounds, no problem. Hot loaded 357, I loaded 25 times, and then I retired it. How do I retire? So I've got a box of 50 rounds of, let's say, 357, and this is going to be hot loads because this is going to be my hunting ammo, defense ammo, whatever. I would shoot out of that box until that box was empty, always returning the empty brass back to the box. And then once I had went all the way through one time, I marked on the box 1. And I'd reload it. When that ran empty, 2. 5, do a diagonal. Da 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 da. When I hit my 10 times, 25 times, whatever, that I thought that's it. It's wore out now. I'd put a big black X on the box. I would load it again for the last time, and then that went into the ammo box as X ammo. What is X ammo? I'm not coming after this ammo, this brass. When I fire it this time, it goes bye-bye. I've used it up. So remember I was talking about a little while ago, that 9mm carbine that's going to eject to Texas? That was X ammo. Because when I pull the trigger, I ain't going after it. It's gone. We're going down in them swamps trying to find your dog that's lost. I'm toting X ammo if I got anything that ejects. Because it's still a good load. It's still accurate in this gun. But at the same time, I ain't going after that brass. And it's had its life. Same thing. You come up begging me, yeah, I gotta have the 357. You get X ammo. You're not getting my good stuff. You're getting the old one. So that's the way it worked. And that's how you build up ammo as well. Because after a while, I ended up with an ammo can full of X ammo and 9mm, and a full ammo can and 45 of X ammo. Jared, good evening. Dark Meta, hello. It'll Kill, hello. Rose Garden, hello. Yeah, exactly. Gray Wolf, I had, for example, a 357. That was a Desert Eagle 357. The loads were for that. No, I wouldn't drop in even to a Ruger. And so I got nickeled 357 brass. And I knew that the only thing I had nickel brass in was that Desert Eagle load. And so when I pulled the trigger on it, I'd always get those brass. And I only shot them, I think I did 8 reloads on them before they became X ammo. But that was marked on the box, Desert Eagle, because it was way over anything I wanted to put anything up. But that gun could care less, it was so overbuilt. Jared Oliver, Blackie, how's the Redhawk working out? Really good. I sold out of the first run in just a couple of days. and they're in the process of being made right now, and those are delivered to me in September. And I have started another run of just whatever the rest of my. In fact, I was going to be announcing that I think first week, that other people want to know, could I get a Black Hawk? Could I get a Red Hawk? Could I get a, I need spare hawk side patches. Can I get a Night Hawk? You know, and so I'm taking orders for those now over at Down and Dirty Woodscraft at gmail.com. And that one will be in October. That run will be. But the Red Hawks, I'm very happy. I mean, everybody seemed to want one. Like I said, I didn't think anybody was going to want it, to be honest, because it had to be so expensive because there's so much work to it. But at the same time, I thought it's the perfect thing to go with the rucksack, because that flap snapping down and those two extra pouches, it just makes the perfect kit to me. And a lot of people felt the same way too. So I'm really glad it worked out. Ooh, Dark Matter, you got a UMSC 2-man combat complete set. You did good. Well, Jay Dewar, thank you very much. I'm glad that you're happy with your 1860. I love my 1860. I mean, I enjoy hunting with them. I enjoy carrying them. I enjoy shooting them. When you hear that noise in that growl in the night, when you pick that, it's very reassuring too, because I know what it can do up close. I have seen it up close and personal. Rose, will we have a moment to talk about the Silver Wolves workshop? I'd just like to know exactly the dates of arriving and leaving. Thank you. The official day is 4th, 5th, and 6th. We'll be getting there on the 3rd. And I have had one lady who's going to come into Atlanta that wants to go ahead and come in on the afternoon or whatever of the 3rd. And I told her, go ahead. But officially, the 4th, Friday, is the first day. And that's just for people to get in, get set up. You've been traveling. Silver Wolves, I'm assuming you're tired, because we've been traveling all day to get here or whatever. And so Friday is very leisurely. It's just getting camp set up, finding out the stuff, and then the official kickoff is at 7 p.m. on Friday night, and that's that night's campfire where we'll start discussing Civil Wolf issues then, things, etc. But I will be on site on the 3rd, which is Thursday. After lunch on Thursday, I'll be on site. And I'm sure several of my instructors will already be there. I just haven't got the exact who's going to be able to make it in early. But all of my instructors will be there on Friday. So I hope that helps you out. If you want to come in on the Thursday, get with us. You know where to contact us already. And we'll tell you what to do, etc. But we'll be there. At least some of us is going to be there after lunch on Thursday. And we'll be set up. So that's the early setup, I guess, early, but really Friday is the official day we want you to arrive. Grandpa Buckshot, 51 Colt and 44. Love it. A lot of people love those and they shoot well. I've had similar guns before. I haven't had that particular one. But my first black powder revolver that I've still got is called the Johnny Reb. And it's made by Navy Arms. It's Pieta. And what it is, it's got the round barrel like a Dragoon, but it's 1860 Army brass cylinder, a brass frame 1860 Army cylinder. It's 44 caliber. And they called them the Johnny Rebs. And that was my very first cap ball. I still got it. Shot it completely out. Rifle's gone in that thing. But God, it taught me so much. Rose, do you leave on Monday morning then? The official end will be at 6 o'clock on Sunday night. You can stay over and leave on Monday if you want to, or you're free to leave then if you want to. Just depends on what you're doing. But I will be staying until Monday to make sure, or at least somebody, one of our instructors, whatever, several of us will be staying there. And we will have a campfire Sunday night, you know. But that's the official end is Sunday at 6 o'clock. And so anybody that wants to leave then is welcome to leave. Same time, if they want to go ahead and spend the night and shove off in the morning, they're welcome to do that too. Hope that answers your question. Any more questions, please ask. It'll kill. My grandpa loaded a heavy 12 gauge load once, and I grabbed my buddy some for him squirrel hunting. Got mixed up. Oh, yeah. I had a box that I had loaded heavy for a turkey load. And my brother-in-law grabbed the box because it said dove load. It was reloads, what it was. It said dove load. And he went out to try to shoot dove. And when he pulled the trigger on that load, yeah. So he only shot 3 times, and he came back and he said, I'm scared of these. I said, that's my heavy load, because I had a real heavy barrel semi-automatic that was set up to be a cop gun, and it was meant to shoot 3.5-inch heavy slugs, you know. So putting that in it was nothing for turkey hunting and stuff. Anonymous, hello. Good night, Bear. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night. Giuseppe, you can stay over till Monday if you want to. Same as before. The official end will be 6 p.m. on Sunday night, but you can stay over to Monday if you want to, and everybody leave out then that wants to. There will be somebody on site until then, guaranteed. Texas Sheepdog, good evening. Thanks for coming in. Rose, glad to help. Jake, I have not. It still shoots accurate, but what it is the opening underneath the barrel that the arbor goes to in my barrel of my 1860 is actually a little bit larger than the diameter of the arbor. And the arbor, you can slightly wiggle it, not much, but when you put it in there, you got a little bit of slop. It shoots accurately, but I've also figured out if I'll drop a little bit of a filler at the nose so it's squeezing, it'll kind of take that out. And I got these small split rings, split washers that I can drop in there, and it will tighten it up for target accuracy. But it shoots well enough now. I haven't had to, you know, I'm pretty happy with it. Hello, Pink. Good evening, brother. Christopher Evans, yeah. The first time I ever pulled the trigger on a double barrel 10 gauge, my granddaddy had it, and I was 8 years old and a dove shooting. It was a wash where it cut a deep V in the field, and they put me in the bottom of that V sitting on top of a bucket. My granddaddy sat behind me, and I had a single shot 20, and I was shooting at birds, more making noise than anything else. And I had, I think, 3 birds for like 3 boxes, and I honestly believe that they were shot by somebody else and just died in my general direction. But I ran out of shells, and I turned around, and he was sitting there smoking a cigarette on that bucket, and I said, "Why don't you shoot, Granddaddy?" "Oh, I'm just out here for you, boy." And then he got that look in his eye. I said, "You want to shoot mine?" It was a double barrel long Tom 10. I can still hear that old man laughing when I pulled both barrels on that sucker. I was black from center of my chest and center of my back. You couldn't have done a better job hitting me with a sledgehammer. I ended up inheriting that gun and used that gun to hunt for a while. So. James, glad you made it. Yeah, The old 1886 4570, good gun. Okay, Justin, tell Pancake. I said hey to him a minute ago, but yeah, tell him hey. Yeah, it one of the hot years. You know, when we have a mild winter, what we call a wet cold winter, we always have a miserable summer. Back in the mid '90s, we really had like 3 years in a row like that, where it was like 2 months, 2.5 months, every day broke 100 degrees. You know, and I was teaching Boy Scout summer camp during that. It was they were shooting down, they were shutting down military bases because it was so hot. The helicopters were landing on the asphalt, and the asphalt was too soft from the heat, and the helicopters were leaving grooves. They were shutting us down because of that. Yeah, James, the old Infield 303 with brass butt plate, they can be. A good friend of mine wanted one of those real bad, and I had one. His dad had one, and that was the first rifle he ever hunted deer with. And you know, he kept saying, "When my dad passes, I'll get to inherit that gun." But he wanted one before then, so I gave him as a Christmas present one of the old 303 bolt action Infield, and he was so tickled. And then he messed up. He went and ordered one of those Zytel plastic stocks to go on it. That gun's already a kicker at right at 10 pounds. That stock dropped the weight of that gun down to 6.5 pounds. It was brutal to pull the trigger on it, you know. And he was just black trying to sight that gun in. And I told him, you know, yeah, if you were going hand over hand through the Himalayas hunting Yetis, this would be the gun to pick because it's so light. But in South Alabama shooting deer, why do you want this? Put a full weight stock on the thing to hunt. I mean, drop the kick down on it. Jake, in your opinion, which do you like better, the Pieta or the Uberti Colts? I'm trying to figure out which one I want to hunt deer for an alternate season. In the past, Uberti was definitely better. But to be honest, today they're about equal. I would go for the cheaper Pieta. I have both, have shot both. Great deal. Fairly recent made ones as well. And it's for the money today, go with Pieta. The accuracy is just as good as Uberti. Uberti in the past was better finished, but not as much as it used to be. So I can't honestly say it justifies the dollars. So oh yeah, Gray Wolf. That was the thing. Oh, I want it so light. I want a light stock on it. Till you pull the trigger on it. If this gun is sighted in and accurate and kicks like a mule, you don't care as long as you kill a deer or a bear or a moose with it, because you're only going to shoot once or twice. On the other hand, if this is a target gun or a varmint gun of some kind, because you're expecting to shoot 25, 30 times in a sitting. And that is brutal. I want a heavy gun for that. And no, don't want to do that. Gray Wolf, I've heard that too, that That's one of the reasons I recommend going with the Pieta. You know, Pieta was bought by Beretta, and that can be good, that can be bad, and so they make a good quality product. I'm not bad mouthing the product. I'm really not. But I like mine is a Uberti, and this is the first undersized arbor I've ever had in my one that I call Shiloh, my 1860 Army fluted, my McCulloch Colt, and it's definitely undersized. So things are on assembly line and etc. I understand that, but I'm lucky it doesn't affect the accuracy on mine, or it would have already been worked on. You know what I mean? Like, have you ever doubled up on a black powder and 50 cal? The heaviest load I've never put double bullet in one. That's a dumb idea. You're just asking to bulge your barrel. But the heaviest load I have ever shot was out of a Browning mountain rifle that listed loads on that gun up to 200 grains, and was said recommended that it could shoot up to 200 grains in it. But it was a big old like 1 inch, 1 1/4 inch bore, 1 1/4 inch barrel cross, super heavy barrel on that thing, and that was if you were wanting to go take really big game with it. And Grouch had it, and we took it out and sighted it in with various loads all the way up to the 200. And yes, it would shoot it, but the average gun, you're just barking up the wrong tree. You're never going to turn a muzzleloader into doing what a modern gun does just because you've got 150 or 200 years more advancement in the modern gun. You're never going to get a Model T to outperform a Ferrari. Not and get me to drive it. So same thing with guns. You chose this old gun, work within the parameters to go with a gun. That's the reason guys tell me, I want to put such and such and hop up the velocity and the power of the 1860 Army. Then why don't you just go get a 44 Special or 44 Magnum modern gun? Because black powder gun is happy in here. When you try to push it past it, you start wearing out parts, you start wearing out barrels, and accuracy goes to crap. Because A, the rifling isn't set up for it, and B, the soft bullets can't do it. And if you go to shooting jacketed, you destroy the rifling in a relatively short amount of time because it wasn't set up for it. You're trying to make that Model T compete with a Ferrari, and it just ain't going to happen. Yeah. Well, guys, that's an hour and 52 minutes. I guess it's about time for us to call it quits. It's right at 9 o'clock here local time, and I still got to go clean up the kitchen from supper. Guys, thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll be on next week, Thursday night, same as before. Thank you very much. I love the conversation and stuff like that, and I really do appreciate every one of you. I really do. Till next time, guys, I'm Blackie wishing you safe journeys. God bless you guys.